Good morning, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I'm Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And Network News, as many of you know, is a new media platform. We started at the onset of COVID, and we are still here. I always tell this story that Harlem Network News is something that we were planning for, but COVID made us really have to jump in the deep water. And why? Because folks were walking around Harlem just stating, I'm Black, I can't get it. And the reason they were saying that is because they did not see themselves. So Harlem Network News, we are an essential service. We want to make sure that our stories are told, and knowledge is power. We are the voice and the drumbeat of Harlem. So stay tuned, stay informed. We endeavor to engage you and to inform you. I just want to just clear, and just pay tribute to all our ancestors that have gone before us. Many have lost their lives to COVID as recent ancestors. Many have lost their lives to gun violence, and this continues to happen in our community. I'm coming on 1 year of the murder of my son befittingly on the Shinnecock Reservation as we approach Indigenous People Day. And I want to continue to say his name, Ali Sam Wayman Wisdom, also known as Columbo the Shining Star. He is with us in spirit. He has ascended, but here in Harlem, I am a member of Harlem Mothers and Fathers Saved. We had a day of remembrance just a few weeks ago. It happened at City Hall, and also it happened in front of Harlem Mothers Saved with Jackie Rowe Adams, one of the founders. And I also learned, knowledge is power, but I also learned that the Day of Remembrance was actually started by our incredible Congressman, Charles B. Rankin. So that's a piece of information for everyone. So I want to get to our guest. I know you can see him, and that is in the person of our district leader, William Allen. William, please say hello to Harlem and the Harlems of the world, and just share with us who you are and whose you are, and actually what a district leader does and is. And I also know that you are working with our state senator, Cordell Clear. So if you could just, put it all together so everybody knows who you are. Thank you.
Good morning, Terry, and good morning, Harlem Network News family. This is another episode. I'm happy to be here. I belong to you, and I'm here to share as much as I possibly can. And hopefully it'll be a moment in time where we'll be educated, and hopefully through that information we can choose to act. Information means nothing if it's not utilized. Someone says knowledge is power. I always believe that knowledge, when it is in action form, is power. So we're here to create the power and move on the action.
Okay, well, I thank you for that, William Allen, and it could not be better said. That's really the mission of Harlem Network News, to inform people, but to engage them, and also to set a little fire under them so that they can become active and take responsibility for their life. I also failed to mention, and thank you so much, William Allen, for really supporting us as Harlem Network News political analysts, and just bringing all of the knowledge and background that you have to the table. So first, if you would share with us what your role is as a district leader, and just what that is and what the connection is, because we know that we are approaching the midterm elections, and it is very clear to me, just because I am here in Harlem, Harlem Network News is based in Harlem, I interact with a lot of people, and I'm very clear that a lot of people don't know a lot of things that are even happening around them. So what is your role as a district leader And
Well, a district leader means that I'm an executive member of a political party, in this case, the Democratic Party for Manhattan, which is New York County. And we meet every month and we go over a whole host of activities around um, the party, but more importantly, around community issues. We're active in helping to nominate a variety of candidates for public office. Um, Most of our time is spent around really nominating um, candidates for judgeships. I always tell people that more than likely my community will see a judge as a politician directly than a regular politician. And so the courts play a huge role, not only in terms of the civic life of a community, in terms of getting justice and fairness, but also in our criminal justice system, making sure that there's fairness in that process as well. And so we do all we can to explain the process to our community. And certainly when people are always reaching out to me, especially when they need lawyers, I'm able to refer them to the plethora of legal resources that's in our community, like Legal Aid Society, Neighborhood Defender Service, and of course, the great lawyers that volunteer for the National Action Network.
okay, okay. Well, thank you for that. That's vital and important information, because in our community, if someone needs a lawyer, just due to some of the economic disparities that we
Yes.
face, it can often be a challenge. And it can be a challenge even if you don't have an economic disparity, just because who your lawyer is can make all the difference. So you want to make sure that that attorney is somebody who's vetted and can handle what you need. If you have a criminal case, then
Yes.
you don't need a lawyer that does contracts, even if they're your family friend,
Yep.
because there are some very specific.
Those are available too.
Okay. Okay.
Especially if you're in small business and you look, a lot of time, a lot of us are new to a whole host of things. And, so those types of advocates are also available, especially if folks are interested in moving into small business. For example, with the cannabis laws now changing, there's now an opportunity for many members in our community who was formerly harmed or incarcerated by that. They're now going into business. So they're going to need lawyers and accountants, all kind of resources so they can run an effective business. And we're here for them as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I will make a note about the cannabis situation, because that's a hot topic, here in our community. And I, like to get the audience to get some better understanding of that and really the impact on our community. Now, can you share what your role is? You are currently working with our state senator, Cordell Clear. And if you can just kind of give a broad picture of what a state senator is, the responsibilities of a state senator, and what you're doing in working with State Senator Cordell Clear, whose district really covers a bulk of Central Harlem. And you can, correct in terms of what the expansion.
Yeah, in fact, her district, the district has been redrawn. So starting January 1st, it would go from 101st on the Upper West Side and on the East Side, 112th. And it would travel all the way up to about maybe 160th Street. On the West Side, it would cover all the communities that's adjacent to the Hudson River and all the blocks that are connected to the East River, starting around 122nd Street. And so her district is largely a Harlem district. We used to have a large portion of East Harlem. Now it's a very smaller portion of East Harlem. She used to have a huge portion of the Upper West Side. That portion now has been eliminated. And so she basically has West Harlem. Morningside Heights,
Okay.
Hamilton Heights,
Mhm.
she on the east, and then you got Central Harlem, and then, like I said, a small portion of East Harlem, and she, Cordell is the Senator Cordell Clear, who is my friend, a longtime friend. We've been working together for a very long time. People don't realize how strong a friendship we have, even when we were on the opposite side of the political table. But we also always
I
made our
remember.
friendship because we are adults and we have a high level of maturity. And so she's also a district leader. In fact, she's my co-district leader. We work together as district leaders. So people say, how do you do that in the state Senate office and also district leader? I said, because we're mature. And at the end of the day, we both need each other. I can't stay in elective office without her. And guess what? She can't stay there without me. Both positions belong to our community. And that I'm just so happy, and she's happy that the community see the two of us having some value for the community, and that we're doing things maybe a little differently than maybe in the past. But we're really big on political education and community engagement. That's like our big thing as a partnership.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, William Allen. And you mentioned the redistricting, and one of the things that I love about Harlem Network News is I always learn something. I though we now have Google, and that allows us at the touch of a finger to get more information, but there's such an information highway. So the redistricting that is going to take place in January, is that for a set period of time? And how does this redistricting really impact the former district? Is this better? Is this more cohesive? Are the people in the district having the same needs? Because I know that that can also be a challenge if the district is very varied. Sometimes part of the district, the majority of the district is not English speaking, or the majority of the district, is in a certain economic group. So how is this redistricting impacting what Senator Cordell Clear can get done, and it being a cohesive get done? Thank you.
This is probably the first time in the history of this state senatorial district that you can literally call this district Harlem. Prior to these redrawings of the lines for the district, the Upper West Side had a huge level of influence in terms of who was elected to serve as a state senator, and of course, the agenda for this district. And I remember prior to Cordell getting elected by the party, she was nominated in a special election by the county committee. And many of those on the Upper West Side said, listen, Harlem needs its own state senatorial district because there are some issues that's different from the Upper West Side and largely Central Harlem. And so we're just so happy that Harlem has a unique and somewhat dedicated seat in the state Senate, so its issues can be shared with the rest of the state. And I got to tell you, over the last couple of years, we've been part of this whole notion of gentrification, largely caused by the cost of housing. And it appeared that the state and the city really was not doing enough to address affordable housing for working and middle class people. And I gotta say that because there was a lot of units for the poor, but for some reason, all the new construction that was taking place in Central Harlem in particular was luxury condos. In fact, I was just talking to someone the other night, no, actually last night, and she said, William, over there on next to the senior center on 116th and 5th, There's a building over there now where the apartments are going for nearly $1 million. And you, Terry, and I know as middle class people, you know, who are into public service or
Right.
community
Yes.
journalism, I can't afford that because the work I've chosen to do is not based on how much money I can make. I've used my professional life in the service and public service, and so when you hear things like that, and then you say, well, where's the next middle class development being built, and you can't find it, and then you got projects that was on 145th Street where we couldn't find a happy equium. And now we're hearing that site now is going to be used as a truck depot. It means that we're really in a housing crisis, and we need a program like Mitchell Lama that started back in the 60s. We need to create working middle class housing for our people. You know, for school teachers and sanitation workers and librarians and state workers and city workers and hospital workers.
Right. Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
you know, because if we don't do that, we're gonna lose the brown and black and black in particular. We're gonna lose African Americans to other regions of this country. Right now, there's a huge migration of African Americans that now actually are moving to upstate New York.
Interesting.
You know, because it's more affordable, and they can buy their first home.
Wow.
You know, it's cost effective. Unfortunately, many of them are still maybe working at the city, and so you can imagine the commute for them, the amount of now hours they have to travel to and from work, and how that takes away from raising a family. You know, must be challenging. And so, you know, I know that Senator Clear, our Cordell, is doing her best to look at all these issues. And she's like brand new. She's a brand new senator. And there's a high expectation on her because other folks might not see other folks doing anything. And so Cordell is put in a situation she had to play all kind of roles, you know, whether some days they want her to be the city council person or some other role. And so it's tough. It's really tough. And guess what? She's not saying that no one else is not doing their jobs, but she says to other elected officials, you know, let's work together for Harlem, and let's do our jobs. Let's do our jobs. Let's protect our people. Let's protect the legacy that was given to us. You know, we were given an incredible piece of real estate in New York City. There's nothing like Harlem. It is the most famous neighborhood in the world.
Yes,
it's
Harlem.
The most famous neighborhood in the world.
Harlem is the Mecca, and we are sitting in the Mecca. And if you go anywhere in the world, you say Harlem, and someone may break out in jazz or a song or something, or you know, some kind of cultural rendition. People do know Harlem, and it has been a Mecca. It has been a haven.
Yes.
So I'm in complete agreement. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And we are pre-recording this show with our district leader, William Allen, and who also is working with our state senator, Cordell Clear. And what capacity are you working with Cordell Clear? Just
so you know, she sees me. Sometimes they tease me. They call me the coach.
Okay. You're our coach too.
Because of the history.
Yeah.
Many see me as her key advisor, in-house advisors, senior advisor. I'm also her special assistant, which is actually my budget line. But I'm there to make sure that she has a friend, a confidant that can help with the agenda.
Okay.
The agenda that when she decided to run and we built a team, we said, listen, we got to make sure, we got to move fast to make sure that we protect the future of Harlem. And so I spent a lot of days. I'm lucky to be off this weekend, but most days I'm working every day because the work is tremendous. And it's not just the work in terms of the state senate. Cordell and I are very lucky to be employed by the people of the state of New York. And we're so happy that with that resource that we can focus on doing the good work for Harlem. And so there's not a task that we turn down to find what we must do to save the legacy of Harlem. And so we're doing all we can. So let me just say this, and then I want to, after this, I want to go really heavy into politics, and I want to move back into my district leadership hat.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's go, because there's so much.
I want to get really heavy into politics. So I'm going to take off the government hat and put on my political hat. So with the government side, Senator Cordell Clear chairs the Women Issues Committee. She's on the Health Committee. She's on the Disability Committee. She's on Consumer Protection. She's on City One. And she's on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business. So that's her scope. And one of the things that she's now doing lately is making sure all those committees that she sit on, that she has rampant activities constantly taking place around those responsibilities. So for example, in August, she did a massive senior citizen day in Harlem that was on the plaza, where it was reported that 1,500 seniors showed up, post COVID, and they were pleased. They came and got information. They were treated like the kings and queens, like they should be treated.
Absolutely.
And they left with a direction. She said to our Harlem seniors that we have now all these senior citizen centers in the community. She wanted to make sure that our senior population become affiliated with a senior center, because that is a place where all the information can be shared and seniors can become empowered, right?
Yeah, very critical.
Yeah, we got to make sure our seniors are connected to something, quite frankly, our church, the Black churches also play that role too, and that's going to be another discussion that we're concerned about in terms of making sure that our house of worship began to become community centers by which people can get information and advocacy and support. The other day that we did was in September. We did a youth resource day that we brought all the resources that our young people need in the community to grow and to thrive. And that was very successful as well. And we had all the sororities and fraternities showed up as volunteers. Aisha Sekou and her organization, who helped with the senior event as well as this youth event, was incredible. I want to thank also Reverend Al Cohen and his wife, Janet. Their youth was actively involved in the
and what church is Reverend Al Cohen with? If you
he has a youth group. It's called TAG, and he's
TAG,
one of,
yes.
one of the few people that him and his wife are doing youth leadership. They're making sure that our young people see themselves as leaders, and so they're having discussion groups and looking at leadership models and showing young people a way of how they can be connected to the leadership of the community. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. They also just had another youth event on their own at Millbank on 118th Street that Joshua Clennon, who had was the lead organizer for, and that was really, really incredible.
I love it.
So politically, so that's the thing that, so government-wise, that's the things that we're doing. Senator Claire has a website on the government side and her political side. We encourage people to Google her, and to go to our website to get information, sign up for the mailing list, and come by to visit the office.
Okay, and
Albany,
let us know, where is the
come by
office?
at 120. Yeah, it's 163 West 125th Street in the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. State Office Building, 9th floor. Please come by and visit and learn the office and learn how it functions. Very, very important. And one of the things what I love about the staff, Senate staff, and my colleagues is as people reach out to the office for help, one of the things that we constantly do, like if there's, let's say if they have a housing problem where they live at, we always ask, do they have a tenant association? Is there a block association? So we're constantly asking those who reach out to us to make sure that they're engaged in leadership themselves. Because often people come and, you know, in the past, and folks just might want to get help like as though they're going to a hospital, you know, and then that's it. But for us, we want to stay connected to you, and we want to make sure that you become the champion of the cause that you seek help with. So we're there to empower you, you know, so therefore,
And how is that going? You know, because I know you spoke about just being overwhelmed and really not having the whole staff to really do all that needs to be done. And I mean, my experience is that we have so much going on. I'm Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News, that it can become overwhelming. And a lot of things, in my opinion, that are happening in our community are completely illogical. They defy what our grandmothers call common sense. You know, if in fact we have a housing crisis, why are, and we have a housing crisis in terms of affordability, but according to what you hear on mainstream media, we have a housing crisis in terms of there's not enough housing and places for people to live. But meanwhile, we have people who are sleeping on the streets. The shelters are bursting at the seams. We have asylum seekers coming in numbers over 17,000. So a lot of this, there's incongruities. And then we're hearing, without even anybody taking a breath, that the mean rent in Manhattan is $5,000. And like you said, there are condos being built here that are $1 million. And the question is, who is affording these high rents, high prices for condo? Who can afford them? Because obviously somebody can. And this is where the economic disparity comes in, you know, because for the most part, it is not the Black and brown people. This is where systemic racism comes in. So how do we begin to fix this? Because as my grandmother would say, they're not using their common sense. So what do we do? Okay, because we're in the middle of this, and this is impacting our lives every day. And then it's further impacting us because of crime, the homelessness, the drugs, the mental illness. And in my mind, a lot of this has to do with the disparities and the economic disparities, which now have people just going in other directions. So if you could comment on that, because it's a huge fix, you know, and I know that you are boots on the ground, grassroots every day, but my experience is just in terms of media and the hand-to-hand combat that I'm doing, that, you know, most people don't know what is happening around the corner. And they are so overwhelmed with living that they're not seeing how they're disconnected from the living. So if you could comment on that, because you're a wise man.
Yeah, so I think that we got to look at current housing and public policy, right? So I remember as a kid, I don't remember shelters and the current housing model that we have. I remember, and I don't remember people sleeping on the street. What I do remember is New Yorkers having the ability to house people in their homes, whether it was relatives coming up from the South or through migration or immigrating from Africa or the Caribbean or other parts of the world. There was some family person or connector that was able to take them in and to house them. And I think maybe there's somewhere in the public policy now that doesn't really fully encourage that anymore. Because I know in some kind of regulatory housing, there are restrictions because of income and documentation and certification, to the point where we're certifying so much that we're not able to help our family members and loved ones. And so
I think that's a very
yeah. I mean, when you were a kid, don't you
that's a
remember your
very
grandmother?
fine point.
Remember your grandmother? She was able to like, oh, well, cousin Mary and her kids that come up to stay with us here and get themselves settled before they get their own house.
Right. Okay.
That disappeared, and in some cases, our kids go up to, let's say if our kids live in public housing and they go up to college, and now they come back from college, they land a nice job, they can't stay because their income will raise the cost of the housing on their family, right? And so it becomes unaffordable. So the way it's set up, it doesn't even allow our kids to create a savings, right? To then maybe to move to the next level. So there got to be a real discussion, a historical discussion, as well as current discussion about how we look at housing, how it connects to friends and family, and what was great in the past, and how do we move forward with some of the things that actually worked then. For example, I'll give you another example. We now see a whole lot of people in need of mental health services. We see drug addicted people, which is tied to mental health.
Yes.
And
yes,
you have the whole
influx,
diagnosis. Just outside your window where you lived at, you had a camp that was created.
Yeah, homeless encampment.
Like a shanty camp. I mean, something from like the Depression or something. And the question is, this population now that's coming into Harlem, where are they coming from? And I learned over the last couple of months that a bus leaves Ward Allen and drop people off at 125th Street and 2nd Avenue, and then and let them fend for themselves for a whole day. And that population then moves in and around 125th Street and throughout Harlem. And it's become very challenging. You have another situation where I'm hearing, for example, you got the Ukrainians, now resources are being made for them in New York. You now got a governor in Texas and other places sending people to New York. Right. Down the mayor says, listen, our shelters are now full. We're in crisis. We can't even help regular New Yorkers. Now we got this additional challenge. This is some hard.
And once again, my grandmother's talking to me today. Both of my grandmothers are talking. This is Harlem Network News. Once again, this is just common sense. Unmanageable in New York City because we cannot manage what we have. But the question is, as we put this up, and I'll put the William Allen hat on, solution oriented. What can we do? Because I think that this is a part of the engagement problem of people, because people see a lot.
I know what you can do. So here's what I think is missing. And I grew up as a church kid, right? As African American, I'm gonna speak culturally.
Thank you.
We got to begin to assess the vitality of our own institutions. where are our churches? You know, what are they? Where's our social network? How are we looking at our children and our elderly and our community? We got to get back to the day where our churches become the strong beacon of hope for our community as it was, and others, Black social institutions. I mean, when you think about Harlem from the 1920s to the early 1970s, and maybe almost to 1980, we had a strong social network that where we were able to really address our issues, you know. And today, our churches, some of them unfortunately have been caught up in a flim flam where their property has been turned to condominiums, and then all of a sudden the condominiums then start attacking the church and tell the church that they got to move. I mean, some of the stuff I'm hearing is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's
amazing.
horrible. It's amazing. It's amazing. You know, so we got to look at our institutions and say to ourselves, what do we need to do to make them strong again? And even as we look at, you and I talk about this all the time in terms of Black media. You know, I remember that as a kid, the Amsterdam News was king. You know, now
and we had Jet, we had Ebony. You know,
you had local newspapers.
Yes,
you had Big Red. You had New York Voice. You had a way that we communicated and we addressed issues and we got things done. And so now even our way of our media has sort of what it has done, because our kids are now on social media, and I don't know if they even watch the news or have any, if they're even watching the news platform. But now, to me, this is probably the one time in our history where there is a significant generational gap.
Yes.
Significant generational gap.
Definitely.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's
So if we're gonna have a discussion, we got to look at our Black media. We got to look at our Black houses of worship. We got to look at our safety net, and we got to then look at other cultural groups that have been able to maintain theirs. You know, I have a lot of Dominican friends, and I'm so proud of them of how they've been able to maintain and build their institutions and to look out for their people. I mean, I look in the Asian community in terms of how they've been able to stay intact, and look out for their people. But something has happened to us as a culture where while we're waiting on government to come do something, we really got to also look at ourselves. What are we doing to protect each other?
Yeah, it's constant. And with Harlem Network News and the media, I know that the work that I am doing, that we're doing as a team, is critical. I know I refer to us as an essential service. We are still working on garnering the funding, but that has not stopped us. And every day, you know, when I work 17 hours a day and reach out in hand-to-hand combat, I just say to myself that I know that we're doing this for the people. We're doing this for the information. As you know, we have had a wave of crime happening here in Harlem. Major thoroughfares. I mean, in a span of 10 days, we've had like a drive-by shooting on a motorcycle right there near the Apollo Theater at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We've had a shooting at 7 a.m. in the morning right by Red Rooster. We've had somebody stabbed in the back 2 days ago in the 125th Street station. So there is so much going on. But even with that going on, I was speaking with one of my new staff, volunteer people and consultants, and she had no idea that this is happening. You know, and she lives here in Harlem. So that's what the disconnect is. I mean, we heard it once on New York One, but people are not getting the information, which could endanger their lives. And like we said, we've got to engage people to take action. And the disconnect, you said it well in terms of what is the disconnect with our youth. They are not watching the news. I had the honor to be at the Congressional Black Caucus. Really, just I was in DC working on some things for my grandson at Howard University, and I got some information through social media that the conference for hip hop politics was happening. And I was able to go over to the convention center, get in there, and Dame Dash and some other people were on that panel. And one of the things that Dame said, in terms of reaching our youth, you cannot have like a whole long discussion. You got to talk to them short. You got to
Yep.
talk to them so they can hear it. And if you don't do that, that's lost. You know, the other situation is what's happening in the music industry. That's very critical. I mean, music, as far as I'm concerned, is a mantra. So if you have youth or people in the music industry that are talking about killing, kicking people's doors in, and it's glorified. And then as you can see, even in, I think, the Atlanta area, they use those songs and what the people were saying to actually arrest 26 people because they were doing what they were saying on the music. So we got to disconnect. And even our HBCU students or our young people who have come out and, you know, now have these high paying jobs, that's the music that they're listening to. That's the music that they're promoting. And they do not see the connection of what you're saying, what you're listening, becoming what it is. Why is a 5-year-old, you know, walking around singing the lyrics of touch this and do that? And they don't even know what they're talking about, but it's going into their psyche. So once again, this is a media thing. And this is not our music. This did not come. And so the ones that are coming up in music feel that they have to put their songs in this kind of thing and this kind of mode to make money. But at the end of the day, there's somebody in the back pulling these strings, trying to destroy our community. So concern, how do we address it?
So that's my point. So historically for us, we had institutions that shaped our message. Our message cannot be shaped by politicians. Okay, I've been a part all my life, and I got to tell you, I don't want to shape the message. The message has to become from us as a collective community. And when I was growing up, I remember our institutions being so much more stronger. You know, I mean, I grew up in the NAACP, and I wish it could be what it was like when I was a kid.
No,
Visible, multi voices, addressing critical issues on a local level. I mean, I wish the Urban League was like it was when I was a kid.
We also even had SNCC, you know.
And SNCC and CORE, Congress of Racial Equality.
Yes,
these are strong institutions. I mean, you know, Urban League, just like Dominicans has a immigrant group that really work with them and protect them. We as Americans, African Americans, we had the Urban League that helped with our transition and our migration from the South. When there was housing discrimination, it was there and it fought for us. When there was people giving us unfair pricing, it was there to fight for us. And I would love to see the day where our civil rights institutions become more involved again in our life in this great big city. And this is not to disparage or to blame the current leadership in these organizations. That's not what I mean. I'm saying that these organizations and its early mission is so needed again today to address these things and to become thoroughly visible. And I know that the Urban League is coming to 125th Street, and I'm hoping that they will use that as an opportunity to begin to look at its original agenda and the flight of Black folks in America, particularly in the cities, and what we're doing. Gentrification is real, and I don't think that we're doing enough to address that. Our communities are under attack by these major developers. where it's now just about building luxury, forgetting about the middle class and the working class, and just go for the money. And
but why
it's
is
hurting us.
this? And this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terry Wisdom. We're speaking with District Leader William Allen, who is also the special assistant to Senator Cordell Clear. So my question is, like you said, it's a very complex, multi-situation.
Yeah.
So public officials cannot really garner the people and, you know, kind of manage the message and the thoughts of the people. It's got to come from the institutions or organizations. It's got to come from the home. But in some of the things that are happening, and this is a question, I don't truly understand it, but a lot of the things that are happening, the developers are ruling. They're in charge. They're the money people. They're deciding what the future is. They are creating gentrification, which maybe you can define that, because it's a word that's thrown around a lot. But what it means to me is that Black and brown people and people in systemic racism who don't have the same income are just not going to get the same services. It just doesn't happen. Until gentrification came, you know, here in Harlem, we didn't really have proper supermarkets. We didn't have some of the chains. We're the greatest consumers, but we didn't have the services. They didn't pick up our garbage. Once gentrification came, suddenly, you know, things are happening in a different way, and we're benefiting from that. So we've got to look at what's going on. And if there is legislation, if there are public officials, which they are, why can't they block and stop this? Illogical things are happening. Just like you said on 145th, okay, they can't build the luxury towers that they want to build, that the infrastructure, quote, can't handle. But now they're going to try to put like a truck stop there, you know, which we know it can't handle that either. Look at what the traffic is. Look at what the pollution is. We already have a bus terminal. These are illogical things. This is not circular thinking. So how do public officials, because people look to public officials, and like you said, in the late 60s and 70s, and I'm a part of that generation, the movement came from the youth. The youth were engaged, and it looked like with Black Lives Matter, the youth were going to swell with that again. But once again, as Al Gil Scott Heron, my schoolmate, said, it's winter in America. So what do we do?
I like that term, it's winter in America.
Yeah, definitely.
It's winter and the Black leadership movement, where it was grassroots and that everybody had an opportunity to be held accountable and involved. And you can have politics. Look at, okay, let's go back to Black Lives Matter around George Floyd and COVID. And look how things happened because we were engaged. Here in New York City, we had stop, question, and frisk, a policy of the police department that really got out of hand, and it was disproportionately impacting young Black men. And because we took to the streets, we elevated our voices, we were attending meetings, people were getting engaged, the laws would change. You know, I can't think of anything that we as Black people got from government because somebody really liked us. All the gains that we've had is because we had made a demand. We had followed through. We had raised our voices. We had organized our intelligence share. When you think about the improvement of public schools with Thurgood Marshall, they formed a think tank. And they not only while they were petitioning the Supreme Court and federal district courts and state courts, we were taken to the streets, we were rallying, we were organizing, we were maintaining a strong voice, and that's how we made a difference. And right now, what has slipped into our young people's mind and our cultural mind is this notion of individual wealth. It's in the music. I mean, you get now the young hip hop artists being murdered by other young people of the same culture. You get our young people shooting at each other. It's almost like the focus is no longer on community wealth. It's too focused on individual wealth and no responsibility to the community. You know, just imagine if we're able to change the narrative back to when we understood that community wealth was individual wealth and that it built families and it gave us all a shot. Just imagine how much stronger we would be politically, because if our thoughts are organized, our capital's organized, you can build communities for your culture and for people that's in need. I told someone the other day in Central Harlem, African Americans is now down to maybe 39%. In fact, there are more African Americans percentage-wise in East Harlem than there are in Central Harlem. You know, and so we gotta look at these numbers and begin to say to ourselves, what do we need to do as a culture? How do we organize politically so we can really properly petition our government? Right now, here in New York State, New York City has a Black mayor. The chancellor is Black. Deputy chancellor is Black. You get Bronx borough president is Black. The Bronx district attorney is Black. The Manhattan district attorney is Black. Of the 5 boroughs, 4 of the boroughs are politically led by Black people.
Yes,
right?
city council.
City council has a Black speaker,
yes,
and so
yes.
what we haven't had this amount of Black political power in this city ever. But the imbalance is that while we got that there, we don't have the community organized to maintain that power or to really do something great with that power while we have it, because it's not going to last. It's not going to be forever.
I hear you.
Things happen in moments, right?
Right.
And in the state legislature, the leader of the state senate is a Black woman. And the New York State Assembly, the leader is a Black man.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're in such significant roles. And to me, if we don't use this time to really strengthen our institutions, like the Black church, like getting Urban League back up to where it used to be in terms of dealing with the flight of Black urban residency, getting NAACP back up where people really understood the importance of voting. I mean, NAACP was powerful in explaining the political process on a grassroots level. Right. Yeah. Right. On a grassroots level, they taught what it meant, and because they were out doing that, and Adam Clayton Powell was significant because the NAACP, Urban League, and all these other groups were well organized, and so therefore, when he went out to speak, he spoke with such huge strength for the culture. Yes, absolutely. And now, you know, in spite of all the stuff that we have, you know, it's not effective. And no, look at Harlem. Look at Harlem. The Urban League and the NAACP, their home base was Harlem. Yeah. So why is this a declining Black community? Why? Right. Yeah. Why? So we've got to look at that. Why are we allowing our kids to think that Gucci and all these high-priced labels, that they're more significant than their own skills and talents and creativity? You see what I'm saying? Why don't we have vocational schools? Why are we not making sure that we have school for carpentry, plumbing, electrician? These are type of skills that our young people can immediately not only have jobs, but create businesses. And so I mean, we want our young people to go to college, but we also say, you know, we want to make sure they don't become broke, because a lot of our college people, young people coming out of school, they're in significant debt. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
recently the president only
Colleges,
said,
yeah, colleges
only
have to
gave
read.
like $10,000, and
Yeah,
it's just, how are
and
you gonna
people
pay a
owe
student
100.
loan?
The
Listen,
average person,
if your rent is $2,000 a month, you have to at least be making $75,000 or more a year. And that means living still on the margin. This
absolutely.
is real. So imagine if you get that and your student loan. So therefore, our young people who want to be teachers and public servants, they cannot afford to live in this Harlem, let alone the city of New York. So therefore, they're going to go, other folks are going to receive the benefits of our investment and our young people, and our city will lose that population. And that's what happening for us for Harlem. Now when a kid goes to college, more than likely they might want to come back, but they cannot afford to come back.
Right.
They cannot afford to come back. And that's why people say, wow, all these new people coming here is growing by leaps and bounds. Well, it's different for them. So these are guys. So what I'm saying, Terry, we got to have some real discussion on our culture, on our economics, about our institutions, and what we got to do. And I believe it's not too late. I believe a good conversation can last for a generation, and put us really focused. And when you think about an Adam Powell, a Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, a Shirley Chisholm, hey, Geraldine Daniels, and Constance Baker Motley. You think of all these great thinkers, but they also existed in a time when the community was engaged in the struggle.
Absolutely.
They
And
were engaged
as we
in
say,
the struggle.
the struggle, this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terry Wisdom. Thank you, William Allen, for a very robust conversation, identifying some of the issues, and the struggle continues. A luta continua. That was the battle cry in Africa for Frelimo. And we've got to look at that because we literally are at war. And as I'm sitting and you're speaking and identifying some of the problems, I would like to reach out to you, and you heard it first on Harlem Network News, that we organize some form of summit, Harlem Summit. We get those public officials all together. Like you said, Black and brown is ruling right now, but the changes, everything is still the same. And that's the frustration from coming from the people. Because when we had Obama as our Black president, people were feeling like, okay, Jesus has come back to earth. You know what I'm saying? And he's going to part the waters and the seas, but it didn't happen like that. And that's because the people have to come behind it. The people have to make the leaders accountable. There's a lot of structural things that have to happen. So I think if we can organize, maybe you and I, Harlem Network News, can organize a summit where it's huge. All these people come, they speak. It's a conference. It's our Congressional Black Caucus, but it's a summit that may help. And we've got to have that youth component. And we've got to educate. We've got to use our HBCUs. I understood from some other states that they have given the HBCUs a voting challenge. And there's a competition between different HBCUs. I think Lincoln University, one of my alma mater, was involved. So maybe we can do that here in Harlem. Don't know, if it's too late for this midterm, but we can start some voting competitions, within the students and education. Those are some other things that I think can happen. And as I'm sitting here on Harlem Network News, actually, I'm going to initiate a community calendar, so that Amsterdam always had a community calendar. So folks can really get on board and know more what's happening. And then once again, there's got to be infusion for Black media, and for real Black media, real owned Black media, not something that, an iHeartRadio controls, because money can control what information comes out. So we have a lot of work to do. I thank you, William Allen, for coming on. I just want people to know that today, the photographers, Black photographers, have a celebration in Central Park. I believe it's starting right about now. It'll go till 5 o'clock, and it's right at the edge of Fifth Avenue and 110th Street. So, once again, creativity, our culture, get out there, join them, support them, get out to Randall's Island tomorrow and Monday for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I feel it's very ironic that all of that's happening on Randall's Island. They also have a red run motorcycle group that is of Native Americans and does a lot of cultural and economic work. Very, very empowering events coming up, and just powerful that Indigenous Peoples Day has been declared, because we all know that Columbus did not discover America, he was lost, okay, and brought pillage and destruction to the people who tried to help him, all the Indigenous people. And just as a point of information, all of North America, South America, Hawaii, and some of the islands, this is Turtle Island. So that's just a point of information. So thank you, William Allen. And we also look forward, State Senator Cordell Clear, to having you come on. We know that elections are coming. Senator Cordell Clear is up for re-election. And if you would just do a little closer on the midterms, the election, the voting, how people can vote. And I know you're going to say, reach out to the Board of Elections, but just share with the people what's happening, when the deadlines are, how they can find out where they can vote. Because like you said, some of these districts have changed. And as someone, I was listening to one of the news shows, I think it was Brother Bashir on BAI, and they were talking about, I think Jamal Bowman was speaking from the Bronx, and just saying, with this redistricting, it can be a form of voter suppression, because some people didn't even know where to go to vote. So if you would just, say a few words as we approach this midterm.
Yeah, well, the general election is coming up the second Tuesday in November. And that date is, I'm sorry, I didn't have it open in front of me like this. Let me see here. That will be the 8th.
Yes, November 8th. Yes.
Yeah, that's November the 8th. And then early voting starts October 29th.
Okay.
And if you're an absentee voter, I believe that's going to start in a week or so. Okay. So that voting actually starts. And, we basically, what's on the ballot is the state election, as well as congressional.
Yes, absolutely.
I think one seat of the U.S. Senate, which is Chuck Schumer, I think he's up for re-election, his seat. And then all the congressional House of Representatives seats are also up.
Yes.
Largely because we're a blue state, and New York City tend to be a blue city. A lot of the folks that got elected in the primary for Congress in August more than likely would be reelected in November. But in spite of that, I still encourage people to still vote in November.
Yes, very, very important.
You never know how things can shift. Senator Cordell Clear, she won her primary in August.
Yes, that was a special primary.
71% of the vote. She won by a landslide, and it is anticipated that she's going to win by even a greater percentage in November. But we got to make sure that that the people go out to vote. And like I said to you, Terry, we got to, do. I think the 7th is important, and we really got to do political and economic education, especially for the new generation, so they can see the relationship between the two of these situations. Because if we don't do that, we're going to have future generations that will not understand power and how to maintain it, and, or I should say manage it. Because politics is about the getting of power and the management of power. And it's, so if we don't understand how this stuff works, we're going to find ourselves back in a situation and a time in America where it's going to be horrible.
Yes, and it's not even, I speak, and here in Harlem Network News, we speak to power. It right now is horrible, you know, and one of the things that, you know, has always been said, I think our Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey spoke, and we know that, you know, change or things can be, I can't say it as he said it, but the conditions can be a catalyst for change. So let's take these conditions that are rough and up against us and use it as a catalyst for change. And just before we close, I'm Terry Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. You can reach out to us at harlemnetworknews@gmail.com. You can go to our Facebook, our Instagram. We appreciate any donations that you can give, in kind services, information. You know, Be Our Citizens app. If you see something and report it, send it to us, because it's about folks being informed. And I personally know, and I believe that media is a critical part of this information wave and the change. We can see how media, which music and social media is a form of media, and we can see that that is who is controlling the minds of our children. So we got to look at that, and we got to take back our kids. We got to take back our communities. We got to take back ourselves. So this is Harlem Network News, and you heard it here. We're going to start that work on this summit. I'm very serious about that.
Yes.
Please go to our social media. Send us your email so we can put you on our list, and bring our sister Brittany Griner home. We started a petition. We have over 1,500 signatures. We reached out directly to President Putin to see where we can vie with that, you know, as there's been a long relationship between Russia and oppressed people going back to Paul Robeson. So we've got a lot on the table. I encourage everybody to go out and see The Woman King. It's based on a true story. It brings up a lot of information. We're working, and maybe you can work with us on that, William Allen and State Senator Cordell Clear, to get some screenings for our youth and have a talk back. I have personally been to the Palace at Abomey and Rita and all of that. So we need to know and understand our history. Let's go see Till, which is based on the life and the story of Emmett Till. We got to know who we are. So thank you very much, William Allen, and let us go out into the world. We have our marching orders for a summit, as well as getting a community calendar going. And once again, if you could share how they can get in touch with our state senator, Cordell Clear.
Yeah, they come by this Powell State Office Building, 163 West 125th Street. We're on the 9th floor. Our office number is 212-222-7315. Please come by Monday through Friday. We'd love to see you, hear from you, and work with you.
Okay. Well, have a blessed and powerful day. Be empowered, stay strong, get back to Black, as was some of our mantras before. And as we say, that's a cultural conversation. It's a cultural conversation, and it's a presence and a state of mind. So Harlem Network News coming to you live, and have a great day. We have a lot of work to do, and I know we can. Yes, we can.